Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salam, hello, peace to you all, and welcome to this very special collaborative live stream, streaming on multiple channels, Break the Siege of Complicity, a fundraiser for the Samir Project. And I'll talk a little bit in a moment about the Samir Project, but first, I want to thank and introduce all of our participants and collaborators who are also streaming this live right now, beginning with my co-host for the stream and co-organizer, Jay from Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. It's great to have you on, Jay. Thanks for all your help in putting this together.
Great to be here, Adnan. I'm excited about the group of folks that we've assembled for this, amazing people, and also really, it's wonderful to do this for the Samir Project, and I hope we can raise some funds for their mass displacement campaign today.
Inshallah. And of course, we have also on producer Sina Rahmani and host of East is a Podcast. Sina, you're always a force. Great to have you here. And
Hi,
thank
everyone.
you.
Sorry it's a bit chaotic. I'm just setting things up. I think you can hear Adnan's voice streaming. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to mute myself.
Well, as I said, a force. Maybe a force for chaos, but hopefully for chaotic good. And our panelists who are also streaming on their channels as well, Nick Estes of Red Nation. Thanks for coming on, Nick.
Thanks for having me, Adnan. I'm happy and honored to join you all today, this morning.
Great to see you as well. And it's great to meet Renee from Saturdays with Renee on Black Liberation Media. Thank you, Renee, for coming on. It's great to meet you.
Thank you. As always, this is a setup. Jared Ware sends me text messages all the time and then has me jump on things with people that I have no idea, like how I'm on a stream. Like, I don't understand how I'm on a stream with people that I watch all the time. I'm just going to try and not to embarrass myself. And then I'll text Jared Ware later and like yell at him for setting me up.
And, we're so thankful that Jared Ball from I Mix What I Like is also on, and for dragooning colleagues and comrades to join us. Thank you, Jared.
No, it's an honor. I mean, and similar to what Renee said, I'm honored to be in collaboration with the folks here and in support of this project. So peace, everybody. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Peace. And I think lastly, there's so many of us, it's hard to keep track. Last but not least, Benji from Resistance is Fertile, who will also be joined by his co-host, Sasha Rombouts, later on in the stream. Benji, it's great to have Resistance is Fertile contributing and participating on this very important discussion and fundraiser.
Well, thank you so much, Adnan and Jared, for inviting me. It's an honor. I'm like a little fan boy because I'm here on a panel with the people I rely on for honest media, perceptive analysis, new information, and soul-soothing rants. You know who you are. And so it's a joy, and especially because of this opportunity also of being helpful to the people in Gaza today who need more help than ever. So thank you so much, guys.
Absolutely. And thank you, listeners. I see there are already many of you on the various streams already participating in the chat. It's great to see so many new names and handles and old ones that are becoming familiar with the live streams that we're doing. I just want to remind you, you can like the stream, whatever stream you're watching on, you can like the stream. If you happen to be watching on my Twitter feed, you can retweet that, but all the other streams on YouTube, please like it and share it. And, try and make sure that everybody hears about this. Like, I encourage you always not to be parsimonious or miserly with the great discussion and great information. Share the stream. Don't just be an ITK in the know. Let others in on it and in on the discussion. But especially today, because today we're doing another one of our fundraisers with comrades and colleagues, and this one I think is very important and special. We're fundraising for the Samir project, and in particular for their mass displacement response campaign. And I just wanted at the very top to tell you a little bit about why and what we had in mind. What is the Samir project? Many of you know. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, but we've held fundraisers in the past also for personal appeals. And anybody looking on social media knows there are so many personal appeals for support and assistance, and we have to respond to as many of them as we can. But not everybody has access to social media accounts. Not everybody is able to get online. Some people are being championed by people with big platforms, and that's wonderful because they get support. However, we did a fundraiser. I wasn't part of it, but comrades and colleagues, I was sad to miss it, for Lifeline for Gaza, to try and equalize some of that and make sure that appeals that hadn't had any activity got some attention. And that was very important and valuable. And I love that work. It's very important that we pay attention to these individual appeals. However, I think it's really even more crucial that we look to collective solutions, building institutions of social solidarity that also can even build infrastructure. And there's a tweet I remember from the Samir Project's X account, and I encourage everyone to go to the X account. This is number one on my list, where they built a water channel and piping with rubber tubing in order to distribute water and put in place infrastructure that helps Palestinians collectively resist and stay on their land. The Sumud needs to be supported in a collective way with infrastructure so that they can maintain themselves. And as the Samir Project, if you look at their timeline, you will see that while they do a lot of food aid and food distribution, and they have tents for people who are being displaced, they emphasize water so much, because without water there's no life, and getting clean, potable water is so important for their survival, to prevent diseases. It's absolutely crucial. So they emphasize getting in clean water, and the fact that they're able to build a water distribution project is just a testimony to why we need to support a Palestinian-led mutual aid organization that seeks collective solutions and builds both the infrastructure and the social infrastructure of collaboration and cooperation. We know how aid has become political. We've heard about the Gaza so-called humanitarian foundation that's attempting to privatize and militarize the aid situation as part of the ethnic cleansing and mass displacement program of the settler colonial intentions and ambitions of Israel in Gaza. And so we know how important it is to resist this by helping people stay on their land. So the links are going to be put into the chat, into the comments. Go to the mass displacement campaign. And I just want to say in conclusion about why you have to support the Samir Project right now is that if you see, this is the fifth tweet on my list. Last week, September 24th, there was a bombing of the facility, a firebombing and bombing of the facility that the Samir Project uses for food distribution in North Gaza. We need to respond to this. They are still working in North Gaza. There are still many people in North Gaza, and they are attempting to remain on their land. So maybe, Jay, I want to bring you in to talk a little bit about why the Samir Project, and then open it up to all our panelists about what's going on in the world and what we need to be analyzing and thinking about. But again, go to the Samir Project. Links should be coming in the chat, where you can go and support the mass displacement response campaign, which is terribly needed, most needed. If you look on their timeline, that's what's being featured right now, because this is an absolutely crucial need.
Thank you, Adnan. That was a great introduction and a great outline of the kind of work the Samir Project does. I was introduced to the Samir Project, I think about a year and a half ago now, by Louis Allday. And I've had Hala Sabah, who is the director or the co-director of the Samir Project, on our platform 3 times, I think, at this point. And the work that they do is deeply embedded in long traditions of Palestinian mutual aid. The people who, just to be clear about structure a little bit, the people who run the Samir Project are folks on the ground in Gaza, right? They are supported by Palestinians in the diaspora, but they are, they're on the ground. It is not an NGO, right? It is not an official 501c3 nonprofit organization or something like that, right? It is really a grassroots effort. And so they've done all kinds of stuff, like you said, Adnan. I mean, getting water to people. They have set up kind of I don't know exactly the term you would use for it, but it's sort of like intermediate care. Like the hospitals are so overburdened and obviously are at such a low level of functionality because of all of the sabotage, right, that has gone on by the Israelis, supported by the US. That and obviously beyond that, these hospitals are not set up for a genocide, for the amount of people who will be maimed and killed and disabled, in addition to all of the other health needs, which are all exacerbated by the conditions that people are in. And so they have I think it's the Rifat Al Arir camp that focuses on a lot of, people who have medical needs. Maybe some cases they're working to get them medical evacuations and so on. And in some cases, they're just supporting folks in that space. They've also done community kitchens whenever they are able to. They have not always been able to do that because at certain times the conditions have just been too dire. But that's that bombing that you mentioned that happened last week in the north was of one of their community kitchens, which was still operating in the north, right? Which I think really underscores the importance of the campaign we're talking about today, which is their mass displacement campaign, which is there is an ethnic cleansing process that is going on in Gaza. People have to raise money in order to move themselves out of a zone that they have been told that they must evacuate from, or they will be considered targets, right? And so that is a horrendous situation. It presents Palestinians with a choice that no one should have to make, right? Of, do I try to, stay and remain on my land and risk being assassinated, or do I move my family to the south and hope that I will be able to return? But nonetheless, in order for Palestinians to even have that choice, they need resources to be able to actually move their families. And a lot of the Palestinians that I've been talking to recently in Gaza, this is what their needs are associated with. It's getting somebody with a car to help them load up as much of their stuff as they can to take it to the south. It's then buying a tent, right, which is part of what this particular campaign helps with, to have some kind of shelter. I mean, the fact that Palestinians are having to do this and that nothing is being also provided for them as they're being displaced like this is just, I mean, it goes beyond cruelty, right? But I think that's the importance of the Samir Project, and that's the importance of this campaign. And the work that they've done is amazing. And I know people might look at these dollar amounts and think, wow, like that's a lot of money. And they have raised a lot of money over the course of this genocide. But you can see every day, if you look on their feeds, on their social media, like what they are doing with those resources. And when you're providing programming for for lots and lots of Palestinians, right? The costs are very high because also they're dealing with price gouging, right? They're dealing with the ways that you know, things get set up so that they can't just buy things at sort of a normal market value, right? I mean, folks have heard about disaster capitalism, right? This is that, like, on steroids. So um, it's just important for people to have that context and to know that they're, an organization that's been operating in Gaza for, over a year and a half at this point, I believe, and just doing amazing work. And it's all been organized by people. There's no, it's not people getting paid big salaries to sit in like some offices in New York or London or something like that. It's going to people on the ground, and all of the workers. This is the other thing I would say is, like, our last conversation with Hala, like, one of the things she talked about was how much the workers just dedicate themselves to this in Gaza, right? They just, it becomes a part of it. It helps give them meaning too, in terms of their day to day and helping their people. And so, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it also is just about, dignity and supporting people in a situation where that is so hard to maintain.
Yeah, I just want to say before we turn it over that is what you just ended on is so important. Dignity. The privatizing and the black market, the attempt to destroy the fabric of Palestinian social relations by making people desperate and compete with one another in a disorganized way for the scraps that are being allowed in, is also an attempt to try and unravel Palestinian society. Mutual aid organizations like the Samir Project resist that very effort by building social solidarity, making it an organized process for collective social support, and to preserve the dignity of the Palestinian people. So I think that's so important. And maybe, Jay, you can take us, to talking about a little bit more about what's going on. But people, get on it. Let's start making those donations and support the Samir Project, particularly the mass displacement campaign. Vital need right now.
Yeah, thank you, Adnan. I mean, so I want to move now. I mean, we're going to talk about some different topics as we go through this conversation, and then periodically we'll return to discuss, the Samir Project, the appeal, how things are going. But I know that Lara and Nick, like, your time here with us is a little bit limited today, so I thought I would start with both of you. And there is this new, everybody has seen it, right? The Trump Netanyahu, so-called 20-point plan to end, the war, a peace deal. And we've been through this so many times now, and it's enraging every time, I think, in how these things are framed and what these proposals look like, and so on. But we are seeing this happen at the UN with a lot of countries, putting their support behind it. There is certainly a lot of pressure on the resistance to accept this proposal. And whether they do or not, I think we should encourage people to continue to support Palestinians in Gaza, because the needs are still going to be there one way or the other. But what are some of your initial thoughts as you have seen this start to circulate, with various countries coming out and also saying that they support this peace plan, so-called peace plan?
You want to go, Nick?
You go first.
You sure? I want to hear from you.
You're highlighted, so.
All right. Yeah, you put the spotlight on the shrink. Thanks. Thanks for having us on, and thanks, folks in the Samir Project, for the labor. I mean, what is there to say? You said this, right? We've been here before. We've been thinking about this. But I think analytically, if I'm thinking about this, is how these powers are trying to, at a time when there's mass mobilization, I want to start there, right? Around the world, I think seeing mass mobilization for indigenous movements, for movements for liberation, that they're trying to put the final death blow on people's support of armed resistance. And I think they're coming together around this. It's so obvious to us, but I think that coming back to that over and over and over again, as we see the mass mobilization of a general strike in Italia, for example, or Morocco, people in the street, or in Urdun, that the more that there are people in the street, and a reminder to all of us that the majority of the world is with Palestine. The majority of the world is with resistance. The majority of the world understands what's needed for this entire project, settler colonial project, to be dismantled, whether to Palestine. And that's why we're seeing this sort of push. Now, what's incredible about it is that the imperiousness of colonial powers is so shockingly brazen. The way they're talking about it is like, it's not only that, it would be a Gaza peace plan, but it's a separation, non-contiguous, of course, and continuation of a non-contiguous Palestine, which is not the demand to end settler colonialism from the river to the seas, not to make more separation, but it's not even the PA. Like, this is the thing about, for us to be like, it's not even the Palestinian Authority that's going to be heading this. There's a way in which the imperial powers are coming in and transforming it into another colony in front of our eyes, and being brazen in saying that. And that's our being able to track the expansiveness and the sort of expansionist project. When we say Zionism is an expansionist project and it works hand in hand with imperialism, this plan itself is showing that, right? And I think this is, for me, where projects like the Samir project come in, because part of it is also squeezing people under conditions where they themselves then are conscripted into disappearing themselves, right? And what we're seeing is that our ability to sustain people's right to remain steadfast, whether that's sumud or literally on their land, or being able to say, I reject this, I refuse it, no matter the imperiousness of the colonial powers that will tell you, we actually own everything and we will make it impossible for you to stay. A reminder across the world that people do stay, that history is not done yet. No matter how much colonial powers will tell you, this is our plan, this is what we're going to do. And the corrupt regimes, the corrupt Arab regimes that are hand in hand doing this for their own powers, that has not yet happened. And in fact, there are people on the ground every single day, not only just surviving because of the Samir project and other people doing that, but committing to remaining and proving to all of us who the indigenous people of that land is, no matter what the imperious plans are. But I think just being able to hold both of those things is almost like the logical extension of settler colonial logics. Of course, it's going to end up here. The pompousness, the show, all of that is part of the fascistic plan, and psychically to make us feel like everything is closing down. And at the same time, for us to keep our eyes on the prize in terms of what is actually happening, where this level of blatant colonial sort of power is showing itself. This is where I'm at. I'm just like constantly holding on to both those realities.
Yeah, I think Lara said a lot that I agree with, and I'm sure everyone else here on this panel is going to say a lot that I agree with. But one thing that, just reading this ceasefire proposal from the Trump administration, it reminds me a lot of, just to kind of relate it back to the settler colonial project here in North America, it reminds me of a lot of the treaty making processes that broke down during the so-called Indian Wars in the 19th century. The United States couldn't militarily defeat a lot of Native nations, so they resorted to total war tactics. And once negotiations kind of like broke down, and there were ceasefires and peace treaties, so to speak, there were concessions that had to be made, right? And those concessions on part of the settler colonial elite were actually dangerous in many ways. And the settler colonial elite actually realized that they can't make these concessions to indigenous people anymore, So then committed to a plan of like full out genocide, right? And so that's what we're actually seeing right now. This is this so-called ceasefire deal is more of a sort of concession that the Zionists can't defeat Palestine, right? After all of these years, after committing genocide, after they're not waging war on, armed resistance fighters, they're waging war on hospitals, they're waging war on schools. Now, I just saw on the prime minister, whatever his name is, Katz, I can't remember his name. I refuse to learn their names, but he was posting stuff about these armored vehicles that they're loading up with explosives that they, that are in tonnage so large that they can't drop them from planes anymore. And now they're waging war on high-rise buildings, right? This is the lengths to which the Zionists will go, right? They're waging war on like a total war of infrastructure because they actually can't defeat the resistance. This is an acknowledgement of, in some ways, their weakness as a project. They're failing, tied to the United States. The U.S. project as a declining empire. Despite all that, that doesn't make it any less dangerous in terms of the outcome. Like, we defeated Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1976, but that did not, decrease the sort of danger of the United States. In terms of its ability to wage and commit, things that were just unimaginable to us at that time. And so I think we have to also put that into the context of what's happening here with this so-called, peace or whatever it is that Trump is proposing, this new cease. I don't even take these things serious anymore, as no one should, because the whole idea of the international system has been made a mockery of. You have a war criminal walking into the United Nations, giving a speech, right, to this body. He's, nobody's arresting him, right, in New York City. And then you have, a president, Gustavo Petro, who's actually exhibited courage that far exceeds any of these so-called, Arab monarchies, and called for an international force to actually intervene and stop this genocide, right? And what happened to him in the United States? His visa was revoked. I mean, he left the country beforehand. But this is the state of the world, that we're in right now. And I think, the Gaza, the Samud flotilla is approaching Gaza, right? And as a lot of just said, we have all these countries who've deployed, battleships. I mean, it's debatable about the intentions behind these, but they're also backed by, as you said before, like these general strikes, people like taking militant action in the streets and telling their governments that this is unacceptable. And so the deployment of these ships, right, even the recognition of Palestine as a state, whatever that means, we can debate the legitimacy and the intentions behind it, are concessions, right? And any concession by the ruling class can be seen as dangerous, and can be used as dangerous, because we're seeing that, again, to go back to what I started off saying, an inability to just completely subjugate Palestinian people, right? And that's what the Samir project, as I followed them over the course of this intensification of one aspect of the long sort of Palestinian genocide, is that the resilience, on the ground cannot be defeated, right? The dignity of people cannot be defeated. And that's why it's important to fund and to support these kinds of projects, because otherwise, the alternative that the ruling class wants to create in this moment in time is essentially a reboot of removal policies that it implemented against indigenous peoples in this country, allotment policies, right? This is Indian policy 101. Go back and read the allotment policies, all these promises of redevelopment, the grandeurs of civilization will be brought to these savage indigenous people, right? It was a ruse to actually implement genocide and steal land. So that's what we actually have to, see it for what it is, right? And to understand that our support, both intellectually of where we're getting our news and where we're getting our perspectives, has to be with the people who are actually experiencing this, that are experiencing the worst aspects of this attack and genocide. And that's why it's important to, align ourselves, not just intellectually, but also materially, with those who are distributing water. Because as we know, in a lot of northern communities, in the United States and in Canada, indigenous communities, water is essential, and they're using this as much as they're taking Palestinians hostage. They're also taking hostage water and using it as a bargaining chip. It's literally in the ceasefire deal. It says, once you disarm, we will let you live, and we will give you food, and we will give you water. And that to us has to be an unacceptable demand.
Yeah, thank you, Lara and Nick. That's great. I would love to hear from some other folks on this. Dr. Ball, do you have any thoughts on this proposal, or
Yeah,
anything?
many. Yeah, first of all, again, it's an honor to be here, and I definitely co-sign and support what my comrades have been saying so far, and I'm sure what will be said. Literally, as Nick was just wrapping up, we got a text message alerting us to the fact that there's another bomb threat at Morgan State University at the library. So if you happen to be at Morgan State or in the Baltimore area right now, please be advised. But I'm bringing that up to say that, because there's a lot of still ongoing conversation and some unfortunate debate in some circles of the African diaspora as to whether or not there should be solidarity with what's happening to the Palestinians. So I bring this up only to say that those who would want to deny an affinity and solidarity with Palestinians while paying obeisance and solidarity and homage to the United States, yet another bomb threat at an HBCU has just been announced. So just as a quick little simple little base reminder of what team you should be on, there's that. But as I was looking over this absurd proposal, there are some unfortunate other overlaps, just even linguistically. I mean, they're talking about, one of the first things that they say is that that the plan is that Gaza will be redeveloped, and all I read is, that's urban renewal. What they called urban renewal for Black communities here in the United States, which the late, great Dr. James Turner, the founding director of the Africana Studies and Research Center, used to point out all the time that gentrification is colonial removal. So just another quick parallel in terms of the language, this idea that there's going to be some redevelopment. The framing of the language: once hostages are released, then Israel will release the Palestinian prisoners, as if so. There's not an equal trade. Again, there's often the false equivalence in the claim that this is a conflict or a war as opposed to a genocide. But then there's sort of this unwillingness to appropriately equate a so-called prisoner swap. The whole thing that Hamas has to give up permanent leadership or political involvement going forward if this is to be accepted, and then once the agreement is accepted, then aid will be released to Gaza. So it's just yet another, again, overt reminder of the genocidal approach to this entire community. We could help you, but we're not going to do that until you completely agree to all of our absurd demands, including then saying we're going to have a transitional body that's led. I'm sorry to be laughing, but it's just anyway. Led by Donald Trump and Tony Blair. I mean, this is so they're even just saying again, we're going to force this false agreement for so-called peace, and then we're going to put all the empire's spokespeople and leaders right back into authority. More nonsense about tariffs, and again, kind of making the same point I was saying about it. Like, we could help you, but not until you do everything that we say you need to do. Are we going to engage in anything that might be helpful to you in terms of tariffs and access rates, et cetera, and so forth? and then they promise that Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza when they're saying that they're going to redevelop it in the image of Israel. So you don't have to annex or take over, what you've said you're only going to rebuild in a way that is acceptable to you, with your leaders, with a denial of Palestinian leadership. And with all this nonsense and false, I think, claims about who can come and go and who can stay, and if I mean, it's just it's as if it really is the perfect and really only logical statement that they could make after what has been going on for the last 75 years and since October 7th. That this would really be the only logical approach. Anything else would seem even oddly more absurd, given the the blatant and sort of permanent hostility and lack of humanity that the West and Zionists and offer to Palestinians. So anyway, it's just frustrating, and similar to I'll stop where I started. That unfortunately, what ends up happening is that when we see something as massively obvious and violent and genocidal as what's going on in Palestine, or whether it's something relatively the opposite happening in terms of this text message we just got about my Morgan State University, the response is always to have a falsely liberal a neo-colonial leadership be reaffirmed by the claim or by the actual acts of violence and hostility, and that's the part that Laura was talking about where she's stuck at. That's where am currently stuck. That after all of this, after all of my logic and my theory, you're going to add a neo-colonial leader. Y'all hear me? And that's how I end up feeling. And it's just so. Anyway, I'll stop there. But yeah. So please support the Samir Project and everybody up on the screen and beyond. And let's get something better to happen.
Much appreciated, Dr. Ball. Thank you all for your comments so far. Benji, I think you also are kind of on a time limit, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to chime in on this.
Well, I'm not on a time limit, but I would be happy to chime in on this. I'm coming back to the title of this gathering, which is Break the Siege of Complicity. And I'm going to look at it from a psychological perspective, if I may. I think there is a dividing line when we're facing the materiality of the genocide, the accelerating genocide in Gaza today, which has to do with, we are seeing, this incredible suffering. And in terms of how people in Gaza respond, I really like the comment from Abu Bakr, who said, this is for the people in Gaza to decide, and we should not comment on this. We should just listen to them. And I really want to respect this, because no one can tell people who have accepted 2 years of this unimaginable horror to what to do. But in terms of the psychology of breaking the siege of complicity, I think there's a psychological dimension to it, and we're being asked to kind of look at the material reality and to mitigate in a way. And this is really the way, settler colonial projects have always kind of advanced, by saying, well, the way to mitigate the harm that is being done by the project is to kind of, go for a truce or accept some kind of capitulation. And on the other side, psychologically speaking, you have this grounding in resistance. And grounding in resistance is just saying, no, I don't accept this. I am not, as a human being, I refuse to accept this inequality of fundamental worth between humans. And I will stand on this ground. And from this ground, I will act in whatever way I am able to act. And I think once we sit in this way, we can become grounded in resistance. And by the way, for us in the West, one of the most effective ways, which is why I'm so grateful to be part of this initiative, is to materially support people who are taking the brunt of the assault by the empire. So giving money to people in Gaza, but not through the NGO, military complex, is an amazingly important thing. And this is an act of actual resistance that we can do. We do it because we don't accept it. And we do it because by helping the people in Gaza, helping those mutual help networks, we also provide the water that any active armed resistance needs to actually survive. So that would be my way of thinking about breaking the siege of complicity. We have to be clear inside ourselves that we will resist in whatever way, to whatever small acts we can do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Renee, we haven't heard from you yet.
Hey, so it's tricky, right? Because in the end, what we're really trying to make very clear is like, this is not at all about peace or stopping war or saving lives or anything at all to that end. Like it's more about like how do we continue this in a way that makes it appear that we're doing something different, because we are now recognizing that the people are not just going to sit back and allow this to continue in the way that it's been going. And so I think for me, and someone, you pulled it up in the chat that someone said there was no representative from Palestine. It's almost like we've gone all the way back like 80 years and we're back to discussing the Palestinian people like they're not real living people who are living in a place, who have a right to live in a place where they have been for thousands of years, right? It's back to pretending that there is a Palestinian problem that other people have to solve, right? Because the indigenous people don't have the ability to make the decisions on their own about what they want to do with their own land. And so this constant like recircling of how do we get away with killing off a bunch of people, stealing all their land, and pretending that they're not they're not a group that it should be autonomous and able to do the things that they need to do. Because I have the suspicion that this is all a setup, right? Like if it is not gone along on the end of the Palestinians, they're going to say, oh, see, we offered peace and they didn't take it. And that's what they're going to point to. And they're going to conveniently leave out that they didn't offer any autonomy. They didn't offer any voice. They didn't confirm that people are going to be able to stay where they live. Like it's all, and I don't know if you allow curse, but it's bullshit. Like the whole thing is bullshit. And I'm just like, I'm so sick of, I really am sick to death of people's humanity just being totally disregarded as if they don't matter. So.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you. Sina, what can you add, my friend? Or maybe you can't, because are you?
No, I muted myself.
You gotta make sure that you're which stream are you on?
I'm double fisting this stream right now. I'm like a guest and a producer. I feel like that scene in The Simpsons where they see Lunch Lady Doris in the nurse's office after they see her in the cafeteria. They're like, aren't you the lunch lady? It's like, I get 2 paychecks. That's how I feel right now, except I get 0 paychecks for this. This okay. We don't need a paycheck. I'm excited. This is fun. It's a terrible time in history, folks. I mean, with that initial statement, you have to say like, oh, when has it not been a terrible time? But this is a particularly terrible time. And I want to show a picture of our moment. For me, that kind of captures a lot of different things. Aside from it, like we can do airing of the grievances around it. It's very funny. Oh, I have to add it as the producer. Hold on, I'm coming. Here, look at this picture. Look at our handsome sons of these elegant leaders. I think who do I see? I think if we zoom in, can we identify them, chat? There's one of the Tannies, the guy who looks like a character that got bullied in a Disney movie on the far left. That guy. The one beside him, I'm presuming, is some kind of Southeast Asian. I don't know. It's Indonesian. It doesn't matter. I don't care. They don't deserve names. Somebody's head is in the background. I can't tell. And then there's Erdogan, the Caliph himself, the Caliph of Azerbaijani oil to the state. Abu Naranha, Marco Rubio, and I'm pretty sure that's the Tomato King afterwards. So did the Tomato King go himself? He had, I mean, he hasn't been anything to do. He hasn't been an episode of Star Trek DS9 in a while, so he's got nothing better to do. And then the last three, the one is from Egypt. I think the foreign minister of Egypt, and then the other one is the Saudi Arabian guy, and it doesn't even matter. I mean, this, I think, in some ways, we have to reckon with a few kind of basics at this moment. We are in the tail end of a process that began, let's say, with the exile of the PLO from Beirut and the gradual, and then the kind of the end of the sort of tail end of the first Intifada, that we are now in a moment of imperial clamping, let's say, is that their plans are all locking into one, whereas the normalization, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, the final solution, the Zionist final solution, is now in its latter stages. Okay, because 1948 was the seed they planted, was like the big debut, but they didn't finish the job, to use their expressions, and they got themselves into and they didn't have the numbers, they didn't have the resources to finish that job. Is that this this audacious project, which harkens back to a kind of 19th century naked land grab, displaced in the second half of the 20th century, which is, itself a kind of anachronistic gesture. But let's say in this post-colonial moment, they build a time machine to go back in time. Doc Brown, Ben Gurion, and goes back in time, creates a new time zone for this Israeli state project where you can just do something like that and make it stick and make it work and legitimate it. And they've been trying to make this project legitimate for 75 years now. Okay, they weren't a legitimate project. They became one with the help of the imperialists. Imperialists have been the key force in their growth this whole time. They didn't have the population stability, nor did they want it. They didn't want the sort of their social flotsam of Europe to come join them, at least not all of them. This was a kind of social engineering of a certain class of settlers, with the sort of Jewish overlay, sure. But their Jewishness at this point is so irrelevant, because this Palestine story, is a chapter is let's say like one condensed version of a wider story, right? Which is settlers invading indigenous land and ethnically cleansing and genociding the indigenous inhabitants, the real inhabitants of the land. And this is a wider story, and how it unfolds across the earth, and it's of course European settlers, but how it unfolds across the earth has been uneven. Obviously, it couldn't have just. This is not like, Civ, where you can just expand and push a button, right? Is that it took time for this European imperial project to expand. And in a way, this Zionist project is its apex. I mean, I don't mean that in like a, Hitler made the trains run great kind of way. I don't mean that in that way. I meant in the sense that all of the facets of European settler colonialism are present. You got racism, you got settler colonialism, you have white supremacy, because it's not just racism, it's white supremacy. Okay, you have religious nationalism, you have deep hatred of indigenous people uniting what is otherwise an extremely disparate group of settlers, right? Do we know this story from anywhere else in this world? Does this sound familiar to anyone? So in this way, Palestine teaches us about the past. Obviously, it's not just the past, because it's right now and it's ongoing, but it is an inflection point for all kinds of European and settler colonial imaginary projects, right? America being its most, let's say, successful one, because it is not like this Turtle Island project is a successful settler colonial project, at least from the perspective of the imperialists, because they stole a continent. Really, they just stole it. They took it and then they grabbed it. I mean, sure, it's divided up into 3 states, but it is a settler colonial entity, this Turtle Island beast, whereas divided into 3 sovereign states, supposedly sovereign. But the fact that all these boundaries between states have broken down in like the last 30, 40 years, whatever, that all of the things that held together the kind of fictitious, liberal obsession with order of things and Westphalian states and blah, 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 it all congealed, or whatever metaphor you want to use. Okay, I made hash once. That's a good metaphor, because you have to like sieve it through a bunch of different layers of filtration, and you get this essence of the leaves itself and the plant and the buds. And like that little cube is Israel. That extremely pasty resin is that like Zionist project deployed. And this project has been unfolding at its own, has and even its own intern, like we are watching also its own its internal incohesion on display. And so the fact that they have to reach for such violent measures to keep their project going, right? That they have to do the worst thing that you can do as a people to another people, which is trying to kill a people. Okay, this is literally the worst thing on the planet that people can do. And they are doing it, and they are filming themselves doing it, and they are paying a bunch of people to distract you from it, and they are oppressing a bunch of people from not showing it to you, and they are paying a whole other bunch of people to go after anyone who is trying to subvert that, right? And so like this machine requires an immense amount of force to keep going. And the fact that we've reached this point where all the Quizlings, they got all the little brown Quizlings into a room to laugh at them, to mock them, where they had to sit there and listen to the rambling nonsense of this diseased orange cube of nothingness and hate. Like, they had to sit there and be like, yes, master, like, this is a scene from colonial history. Like, this is a grand historical moment. I mean, yeah, it's shameful, but that picture, this moment, all of the things that Zionists have done and crowed about, the speech, all of these things will be etched into our species' histories. And the fact that we're here talking about it, and that we're like part of this network of freaks and losers and weirdos and like outsiders who aren't accepted by the normies as part of their imperial machine, the fact that like we could do that, like that is like we are just a little bit of a figment. I mean, if we had the media class on our side, except not, and it would be a completely different story. It would be like we would have thousands, tens of thousands marching in the streets every day. I sincerely believe that. Like I have a kind of, maybe call this faith in the people of the West that maybe is displaced. I don't know. But I feel that if you showed them, if we had a real courageous media class who showed what's happening, you would have an incredibly radicalized populace. Now, even without showing, it's been radicalizing, and there is this rage that is crystallizing all around the world. And and as much as like, and partly this has, and we don't see it because media class keeps it from us, but also we're not, like, our societies are built around, our neoliberal hellholes that we live in are built around suppressing any kind of political anxiety, any kind of radical sort of feelings around the order of things, unless they're useful to a ruling class, right? So you hate immigrants? Good. We'll put you online. We'll boost your stuff online. You know, like we'll find a way to change that. To change that into political capital. But if you're ragging on our little enemy of our little entity, our racist little ethno-state, our precious little ethno-state, oh, you bet your ass we're not going to let you live comfortably. We're going to harass you. We're going to send our goon squads to come after you. Like this that they are pushing so hard on some of the most like impoverished and oppressed people in the history of the world. This should tell you how afraid they are of this moment. That what's at stake here, okay? The Yemenis, I will say it again, for people who haven't heard this, I'm sure there are people who've heard me say this, but the poorest country, one of the poorest countries in the world is bringing capitalism to a grinding halt. They are shutting down the container shipping system that runs as the kind of like artery network of commodity capitalism, okay? That's their ability. Right, like this is like Pixar movie level obviousness of like who's the good side and who's the bad side, right? Like we can tell, but there's this other force in which is called 500 years of Orientalist racism that have trained us to see these people as enemies and as everything that like stands anathema to us. And if anything, what Zionists have done is seriously dampen the effects of that. That Zionists and their incredible sadism, I mean, the evil that they just shed on a daily basis, that they then also record for the benefit of their own community formations. Okay, like don't forget that those videos of them, like those pictures of them in Palestinian women's underwear in their homes, it's bringing them together. It's not harming them. It's helping them to them and how they think. Now it's harming them across the rest of the planet, but it's now to them in their own projects that reinforcing their own supremacy. So that this is that they're reaching to this depths to pull this out. And I mean that the Netanyahu speech, the flotilla, Gustavo Petro, this is not as an Iranian, I'll tell you what, like the feeling that, man, it's you against the fucking planet on this entity, that all of the fucking people are aligned with this entity. It feels like finally the states of the world are catching up. Obviously, there were other states who felt this way that expressed resistance to the entity. But finally, like, they're acknowledging that the fucking tankies were right. That this beast, this monstrous beast, needs to be ended. And the people who are going to do it are labeled as regime, okay? That's it. Like, that's the game here. Okay, so, like, I don't know. I'll end with this. That's a big rant I had. I was saving this one up. But like I've been recently talking to somebody as part of a co-project, and for all intents and purposes, he's a liberal Zionist. He doesn't know his own politics, frankly. He's a nice guy. He's a sort of, in a weird way, family to me. And so I can't just do what I usually do, which is like, I'm not talking to you, goodbye. And I've been having this problem of telling him, like, look, dude, look what they're doing. Like, you can't exist in this middle frame that you're in where you're decrying what Zionism is doing, but you're too afraid to walk away from it. And I feel like there are a lot of people in our society who are in that position. A lot of liberal people, frankly, who find themselves unable to resist that urge to be afraid of brown people. And also that they can't just, but they also see the reality of like, who are the baddies. So I feel like we are here to do that. We are here to pull. That it's not that our political class will never turn on this entity. They have too much. I think one of the chat comments basically said they have too much dirt on these dudes in that picture. Imagine what they have on those dudes. Those dudes will never give it up. They will die before they change their positions. Like Erdogan, all of them, they will literally die. Yeah, that's the quote. I really believe compromat is behind this. We shouldn't use compromat. We have a word in English. It's called blackmail, but fine, we'll let that one go. I can't believe compromat is really behind this. I haven't read Blumenthal's Goliath yet, but when he talks about the IOF sexually servicing U.S. kids on birthright, like I don't even think it's just Israel at this point. I think there is this web around the world. Epstein exposed it, and sure, Israel is like a key hub throughout all of this, but we are talking about a ruling class, a global ruling class, and they have decided now that this Gaza problem it's time to nip this in the bud. Okay, this is it. And so I am actually terrified of this moment. I'm terrified. I'm literally terrified, and I wake up every day and I was like, is this the day? Because it's the unstoppable force meeting an immovable object moment, and that picture I think portends something, but we'll see. I hope I'm wrong.
There we go. I promised at the beginning that we might get a Sina rant. We did get a Sina rant, and as many are saying in the chat, it was just what was needed, healing and medicinal. So thank you, Sina. I would say your sound is low.
Oh, God damn it.
And you're the producer. So,
no one tells me anything.
I mean, but I think
said it. Here,
I think people managed to hear it. They probably turned it up. So I'm trying to speak a little softly while people lower the volume.
How about this? Is this better?
That's better.
I can yell harder.
All right.
I'd like to yell.
But during the course of Sina's unstoppable and necessary rant, two of our comrades had to depart. So we say goodbye to Nick Estes from Red Nation and Lara Shihai. They would both say, please give generously. This is a fundraiser for the Samir project, especially its mass displacement response campaign. Please go make a donation right now if you can. And also they would say, tell your comrades, colleagues, friends, even your enemies about this live stream. Like this stream, whatever stream you're on. If you're watching on X, you can retweet it. But let's make sure we still have a little ways. We're at basically the halfway point of our planned online live stream fundraiser. And so there's plenty of opportunity for people to give, and also a great discussion to have in the second half. And so I'm delighted to say is that we have reinforcements. We have two who depart, but one who comes in. Sasha Rombouts from Resistance is fertile. Welcome, comrade. It's great to have you on. And I want to give you a chance, maybe just to say hi, and then we'll have an update from Jay at the top of the hour now about how we're doing in the campaign. But welcome, Sasha.
Nice to be here. Nice to be here. Every resistance needs good reinforcements, right? But man, coming in on that rant, someone has to splice together Cena's best rants, I reckon. Because I think my favorite one, there was one a little while ago, and he just started talking about how they deal in blood and drink blood and trade in blood. I'm just like, wow, it's a whole other level.
Amazing. So I can give an update. So since we have been on the air, $9,076. Well, 9,000. I see it in pounds. So probably $10,000, right? In terms of the, the ratio there. But yeah, so that's great. When we actually maybe more than that now, because it keeps updating. But yeah, no, that's right. So 9,076 pounds has been raised since we've been on the podcast, and it's amazing. One person, an anonymous person, gave $7,000. So a lot of that came from one very generous donation. But a lot of other folks, including several of us on the stream, have contributed in between rants and our analysis. And so yeah, this is great. I encourage people, please, to to make another donation or to make a first donation if you have not yet. One of the things that a few people have asked how to find the campaign. Maybe the easiest way, we have it here up on the screen, but one of the easiest ways is to go to their link tree, which is Linktree / the Samir project. And from there, it is the top campaign on their Linktree, the Samir Project Mass Displacement Campaign. But we also should have it in the show description wherever you're watching, as well as in the chat. So we've been trying to do that. It's a little tricky because we're streaming on I don't know, 8 different platforms or something like that. And so getting all that information to synchronize across all of them was a little bit of a challenge for us this morning. But nonetheless, we hope folks, it is in the chat there. Folks can see it. So yeah, we encourage people. There it is. That's the Linktree thing is kind of spelled weird because there's a period in the middle of it. But go there, pull up that campaign, and continue to keep the momentum going. It's very exciting that we've already raised probably the equivalent of $10,000 in the equivalent of this or during the stream. So yeah, Adnan, what else?
Well, I just wanted to follow on the discussion we were having and also bring Sasha up to speed so we can throw to him, but just that you had already introduced the major topic about this so-called peace plan that Sina just ranted about, those leaders and the misinformation, the disinformation that's taking place. And so we were talking a little bit about that. I also wanted to note there's a number of us who are in Anglophone settler colonial societies. In fact, maybe all of us who are participating on the call are now, and that includes you, Sasha. Today in Canada is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and it's a holiday for many city workers. My university is shut down now. Classes are canceled. People wear an orange shirt to show their solidarity, and people call this decolonization. Decolonization light. It's branded, it's promoted, it's supported. We're witnessing in Palestine settler colonial attempt at genocide and liquidation of a population. We're supporting the Samir project, not only because they're a mutual aid society delivering water, food, tents, and other assistance, but because they are creating the social solidarities that in the future will also be important, especially given what we've been talking about with the whole aid and reconstruction bamboozle, the plans that people are making for the future of Gaza to privatize make it a Gaza Riviera like the Trump plan, which essentially this, Trump peace plan is proposing. That essentially what we're talking about is how we can help assist Palestinians to stay on the land and have control over their own institutions, their own lives, to have meaningful sovereignty. That's what it's all about. And indigenous sovereignty is something that is contested across all of these Anglophone settler colonies. And recognition of that history outside of just a kind of symbolic, corporatized and state-sponsored way is truly crucial. And so I just wanted to say, bringing that perspective is also interesting, and wondering, Sasha, if you have any thoughts on the conversation so far on being also in an Anglophone settler colony, how to reflect on this moment.
Well, I mean, if I tie those two things together, like the special days and then the plan and what people have been saying about it, what you guys have been saying about it, if you break it down and look at like the function and the context, right? Like what's the function of this behavior and why is this behavior happening in this particular context? Talking about that day, it reminds me, I was in this place called Wollongong and they had a local museum, and I was at this museum and they had all of this artwork and like indigenous pieces about genocide and all that sort of stuff, and I'm looking at it going, why did they allow this? Like, what is the function of this behavior? Why would they allow this to be here? Why wouldn't they just like wipe as much of it out as possible? And I looked at it like, well, one function is victory, like this is in the past. They make you think like, see, this is like happened, it's not happening now. And then I guess the other function, like you said, is sort of this tokenistic, like, no, we do care. So we've integrated, right? Like it was like this terrible thing that happened, Well, I've got lots to say about the plan thing. I mean, I did have one question, and that is, how much of a say do us as non-Palestinians get about the plan, right? Like, because you can look at it black and white and go, well, it's their decision to, whatever deal they happen to make. But if you look at it more broadly, you would go, well, hang on, like actually this, whatever agreement happens there impacts the rest of the world and impacts the type of world that I want to live in, right? So it's got me thinking, the plan got me thinking about, I feel like I, want to have some sort of a say about, the plan. Maybe we get 20% or something. I don't know, because you look at that, and whatever happens there is going to knock on to all of our societies now, right?
That's an interesting point. I mean, your colleague from Resistance is Fertile, Benji, said, well, he liked Abu Bakr Abed's tweet, which was, this is for the people of Gaza to say. And, one thing that's important is in these halls of power at the UN, in the picture that Sina showed of the so-called world leaders and regional leaders arrayed together. It looked to me like a Berlin conference, the late 19th century, the division of Africa, who's going to get what part, who's going to get which reconstruction contracts, who's going to have, say over the fields of oil and natural gas off the coast of Gaza, who's going to be part of the pipeline that's going to, connect the global, capitalist empire and make sure that the networks of circulation and profit are not going to go to China, and to, how can we isolate Iran, right? These are the kinds of things that they're there to discuss. And there's no Palestinian voices genuinely representing popular will. The people in Gaza who have suffered, who have fought, who have resisted, and are still resisting to this day, and doing everything possible they can to stay on their land and to be sovereign and to be free, are not even in those rooms. They have no representation. The whole point is that they must eliminate indigenous sovereign participation. That's why it's a sine qua non. It's like the first condition, as others have mentioned. The first condition is that you first have to surrender and accept, our political program for you, be demobilized, be demilitarized, have your arms removed, who knows what, ejected from the territory, and accept your own exile. And then the aid will flow, reconstruction will happen, and so on. The whole point is to remove the possibility of Palestinian sovereignty from the mix politically. So that's kind of the situation that we're dealing with, and why it needs to be resisted. And as far as this flotilla, I've been saying this since the first announcement of the Italian naval ship by the Minister of Defense in Italy, saying that they were dispatching an Italian naval vessel. It had no clarity about what its mission was. Was it there to protect the flotilla? No, that was never stated. In fact, actually, it was, to provide possible rescue operations. Rescue meaning that they expected and were willing to accept Israel destroying this fleet, but they needed to be there to make sure that they could save the Italian citizens on board and protect them, only in that capacity. But were they going to intervene militarily? No. And in fact, actually, the very same day, the right-wing fascist prime minister, Meloni, basically said, that this was an irresponsible move by the Gaza flotilla. It was unproductive. It was unhelpful, irresponsible, extreme, basically delegitimizing this peaceful, global civilian response to try and break the siege, and said instead that they were trying to negotiate ways to derail them, prevent them maybe in Greece, or have them unload their aid in Cyprus. Okay, Cyprus, which is becoming almost a colony of the Zionists, right? Israel has actually dispatched and placed artillery and other armaments in Cyprus. Okay. That these should.
It's actually also just a British base too. Like it's occupied
Well, yeah,
by
there's
multiple imperial and Turks too. It's like the most colonized. It's like hilariously occupied. Yeah, poor Cypriots. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's got two British military bases that have been participating in the surveillance and overflight and possibly even targeting. There's evidence providing intelligence for the targeting for the Israeli military in Gaza. So, but the point was that it should be given to the patriarchate, the Latin patriarchate, to then of Jerusalem, to then distribute. And, this just reminds me, firstly, Cyprus is if you study the history of the Crusades, Cyprus was absolutely crucial geopolitically in the crusading effort. Richard the Lionheart conquered Cyprus on his way to Palestine from the Byzantines, and actually installed there the Crusader king who had been defeated by Salah ad-Din when he captured Jerusalem and installed him there and established the Lusignan dynasty, a crusader dynasty in Cyprus. I mean, the connections between medieval history and what's happening in the Zionist, project of settler colonialism is so clear and common. When are these Western leaders going to give up their crusader desire to control this land and these people? That's my kind of big question, on it. But there's a lot to talk about, and that was just a brief kind of, and not as great as Sina's rant, but as a historical rant. And who cares about medieval history after all? Except that when you look at it in a deep way, you see these recurring patterns of Western imperialist imagination and fantasy, and that's the world we're living in, is the legacy of that. We have to combat it. We have to learn about these deep roots, which help explain why it is, as Sina said, the entire Western political elite is completely committed to the Zionist entity. Why? Because it is a crusader entity that they have imagined and been attempting to establish to control West Asia and trade through there and its resources for hundreds of years. So this is a long struggle. Let's support the Palestinians who are at the vanguard of fighting against Western empire. Who should we go to? Sorry for that. But we haven't heard from Jared and Renee in a while. Let's see if they have any thoughts or other issues that they want to bring up, about what's going on right now in this crazy world of ours.
I love this thing that J-Dub does where he just throws you on blast.
I'm not the producer today, Renee. No, I didn't do that.
I mean, I actually appreciate the history lesson. And I love a good Sina rant, to be honest. I feel often like a crazy person. Like I'm sitting and watching things happening and trying to understand, like, is everyone watching this and thinking like, what the fuck is happening right now? Or is it just me? Like, am I alone in my utter like confusion with the caucasity of like Trump to stand around and determine like what another country is going to do? Like, Trump can tell Israel what Palestine is going to do. Like, is no one putting this together to say, like, how is this person who can't pronounce like simple things, like, why, like, how did he become the speaker of like what's going to happen for the future of an entire population of people? And really, like, reading through these documents and reading through like the articles and really understand, like, I hope people are understanding the utter horseshit that is being sold here as a peace plan, right? You cannot sell peace while telling people that they cannot live their lives the way they want to live their lives. That's how we got here, is by this group of people going into an area and determining like, well, we're just going to take this place over and we're not going to pay any attention to the entire population of people who already live here. And so, as I read like the breakdown on the BBC, and that's pretty much all I've had the time to do, and noting that they like casually throw in that, like, well, there's a line in here about this potential future for Palestine to, become its own state. But then later on noting like, well, Netanyahu said that this is off the table. We're not going to allow this. And wondering why we're even having this fraudulent conversation in mainstream media about this potential possibility that this group of people are going to be allowed to be autonomous and to, to make their own decisions and rule themselves. Like, I want the news and the media and all these people with this wide range of like ability to communicate with other people to stop lying to people, right? Like, stop telling people that the sky is green and water's dry and that you can drink the sand. Like, can we stop with this whole like bombardment of utter nonsense. Leave the people alone. You know, like my argument all the time with people is, I'm not bothering you. So why are you like, leave me alone. A man booed me on the street the other day because I was wearing my Israel is a settler colony sweatshirt that I love to wear where I'm walking the dog, by the way, because it's my favorite sweatshirt. And this man like waits until he's far enough away that I have to wonder and starts booing me. And I'm like, you didn't even have like the fortitude to do that when you were a foot away from me. Right? Like, I can't even respect you with that. Like, at least boo me to my face if you want me to take you seriously. Right? And so, you know, I'm watching all these things, and I live, you know, for folks that don't understand, have no idea who I am, I live in New Jersey. And on the floor of Senate right now in the state of New Jersey is this attempt to make the, you know, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, the state law. And then there are all these things that are following with that. A group of people are being currently sued by the Trump administration. I just found out this morning because they got mad that they showed up when they were selling Palestinian land to people who live in New Jersey. Like, why are you in New Jersey buying the land that belongs to Palestinians? It just, like, we're all in like the upside down. And I just, like, I really wish we were in a space where you could at least rely on the people with the most reach to just tell the truth. And that's not even, it's not an option. It's not a possibility because they're all bought and sold by the same people. And I just, like, it makes me want to scream. Like, I just want to scream and just like let my head explode all over everything because I just can't. I can't. And I don't know if my rant's as good as Cena's, but I needed to do it. Sorry.
No, that was really good. And I have a way to bridge it to Dr. Ball here, because I think, like, I mean, what you're talking about is it is related to what Cena's talking about, which is like the ability to narrate, right? Or to define, Huey P. Newton talked about power as the ability to define phenomenon and make them act in a desired manner, right? And, you look at this so-called peace plan, or you just look at the language that's used across so-called journalism, to describe the various actors involved in it, the resistance, the Israeli settler state, the US's role, all of this. And it does make you feel crazy because everything is upside down. Everything. I mean, the point that actually stood out to me a lot is just point one in this 20-point plan, as far as what the White House has been communicated. This is actually not the whole. We don't actually know what's all in the plan that's been that would be communicated to the Palestinian resistance to review. But point one in what the White House gave the media was Gaza will be a de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. Right. And so, I mean, on one level, you can say, well, when has Gaza ever posed a threat to its neighbors? Right. Like, and then you have to say, oh, well, who are the neighbors? Like, we're not talking about the other countries in the region, right? We're talking about the Zionist settlers who have decided that Palestinian land belongs to them, and so, it just all of these linguistic tricks that are done, that are made normative, right? That we have to deal with when we're reading something like this, because on its face.
I'm sorry, Jay, but real quick, like, are they serious? Like, who is bombing the neighbors? It is not Hamas. Like, can we be serious right now with this utter horseshit? Like, I can't. This is why I get annoyed. I can't.
But that's the gaslighting part of it, right? The gaslighting part of it is that everything they say in that should be applying to the opposite side, right? Like, the actual plan is much simpler, which is if you dismantle the oppressor, you don't need to talk about aid, because there is no aid, because the Palestinians will have sovereignty and they can decide what they do. You don't need to talk about prisoners, because the Palestinians will own the prisons and run the prisons. They just have to make sure they get the codes handed over, like, on their way out, right? But that's why it's gaslighting.
No, absolutely. But yeah, to kick it over to Jared Ball, I mean, just, how do you assess our media environment right now, Dr. Ball?
So first of all, I don't think any of us should have to be held to a Cena standard of rants. So that's just unfair for everybody. We should all be absolved of that. First of all, secondly, Jared, you and Adnan pulled out of the nonsensical rundown to the two pieces that I wish I had remembered or focused on myself. That I think do again overlap beautifully with all forms of liberation struggles. That is the narrative definition of the colonized as insurgents. And I still laugh when I think about the papers of 100, 200 years ago referring to, 100 years ago referring to Nat Turner, or 200 years ago referring to Nat Turner as an insurgent in the same way that they would describe Palestinians or Iraqis or whomever else that they're invading. And then Adnan, you brought up the other one about demanding the Palestinians disarm themselves. So you have and Renee also. I mean, everybody's. I mean, the whole thing is hilarious. Like who in that region is on a daily or any basis or at any point saying, "Oh man, I feel threatened by Hamas and the Palestinians. Their existence is threatening to me." So for even the language to say that the neighbors, and even to use that word neighbor, we're neighbors now. What kind of relationship does that mean to convey? It's all absurd. Like what kind of so I mean, Renee, I know you always get in trouble. People always get mad when you laugh, and I'm laughing now but there is almost no other appropriate public response that would be allowable on YouTube. Which gets to the last point that I wanted to make to this question that you raised about the media environment, that our media environment, and the one point I wanted to make before we wrap or today at least is that our media environment is also designed not only to rebrand and redefine the narrative and the people involved, but to discourage particular forms of response. So I do want to encourage we on screen and those in the audience to find new ways to materialize our collective disgust, whether it's an electoral plan, some other non-violent, peaceful, direct action style of protest, something that, because whatever we do, it has to be very much different than what we are doing. It has to be much more disruptive. Otherwise, to the points raised and questions raised earlier, those who are doing this, they have no interest, they have no desire, they have no, as Dr. King said, they're not psychologically organized to distance themselves from this colonizing imperial behavior. So when will they stop? They would have to be made to stop. And so if we can just do that with organizing our vote differently or some other, of course, nonviolent direct action type of behavior, that would be great. And otherwise they're going to continue. And then the only other piece that I would want to say when the question is also raised about why is this happening and why the interest in the region, yes, resources are very much a part of it and the extraction of labor. But the more I've been paying attention, at least the more I am convinced in speaking of narrative, in the religious mythology and the politics associated with that are a lot of the foundation for people's willingness to support what's happening to the Palestinians. And I don't think we can discount that. As much as many of us with a materialist approach of form or fashion focus appropriately on the extractive aspects of this, that immaterial piece of that is really, I think, playing a major role in why people are supporting this as much as to the extent that they do. So, But to the extent that the mic doesn't come my way again in this collaboration, in this gathering, I really appreciate what you all have been doing, and Adnan, you putting this together. And I really hope people do check the links in the show description and elsewhere to support the Samir project. And that, again, who are here gathered, and however we are showing up, find more aggressive ways to materialize, again, this disgust that we have with what's happening.
Yeah, thank you. Let me give an update on the campaign, and then I think we should hear from Sasha and Benji maybe a little bit more. So I have it now at 10,818 pounds, and I found a quick little conversion, which to US dollars, just for those of us on the thing that are, more familiar with that. But it's basically about $14,500. So that's what's been raised during this live stream. Now, obviously, some people may have given that are not watching this live stream, but we're going to claim everybody who gave over the last couple hours for our own.
Obviously,
They
definitely.
pick the vibes. They got
At
the
least
vibes to the
7,000 pounds donor. That's definitely, one of ours, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, amazing folks. It's wonderful. And, I'm grateful for Adnan, you helping, and everybody joining on and putting this together, that we were able to, help bring more resources to this vital campaign, helping Palestinians be able to relocate their families amid, bombardment and forced displacement. So, so Sasha and Benji, maybe Sasha, we didn't, we let you say a few words when you came in, but I'm sure that you have other things that you would like to add, and you and Benji can kind of maybe take the floor for a bit.
Well, bouncing off what Jared was saying, I've been thinking a lot about stories lately, right? Like like what Susan was saying, we just covered her in our episode about the importance of the narrative battle and how the battle for story is so important. So on the one hand, they try and stop the resistance from developing a coherent story, a coherent narrative, and they try and delegitimize it, make it illegal, make it terrorist, make it, this, that, and the other. But on the flip side of it, they don't have their own stories, so they sort of have to create stories, which is where sort of Hollywood came from, right? Like, if you think about it. And maybe that's the thing with that fusion of religious mythology and the political thing, is like they really just don't want to let go of their stories. Like, even when you see the right-wing people turn a bit on Trump, they still maintain this sort of core rigidity, attachment to their fundamental sort of belief system, you know what I mean?
So when you were giving the update on the fundraising, I think we have to see that now that we get people making £7,000 donations as a result, of course, of our words, we know APAC is done for, right? So let's celebrate that and have more. But I think, Adnan, you were giving the very broad historical brush, and I want to go micro-historical. I think the timing of this peace initiative is extremely important. When we look at the context of the timing, it comes at a time when we saw the flotilla is approaching Gaza. It comes at a time when the Gustavo Petro initiative, whatever one thinks of it, but is still trying to get international support for Salvation Army, as he calls it, to go and stop the genocide in Palestine, and getting some traction. And it comes after we've had a general strike in Italy in support of Gaza. Now, I don't know if there are people who know more about the international labor movement than I do, but a 2-day general strike in support of something like a genocide in another country if not unheard for, is extremely rare. And I think it says something, and it probably puts the fear of God onto the ruling classes. So we have to think of that timing. I don't know if the recognition of Palestinian state is not part of the operation, so I won't name it. But even that actually has consequences that are not necessarily those that the people who put it forward as some kind of clever scheme think they will have. You know, there is a legitimation, there is a delegitimation of the Zionist project everywhere. When we think about the level of propaganda we've been fed, you know, those of us who still subject ourselves to watching the MSM, thankfully I don't do this, but we go crazy because none of that information is out there. And in spite of this, majorities are returned absolutely everywhere, especially amongst young people, against this project, against arming this project, in support of the not just the Palestinian population, but in support of armed resistance. You know, the actual numbers of popular support for the armed resistance in Gaza are unbelievable, especially when you look at the campaign of delegitimation. And what they do is they go on the one battlefield that they think wins everything, which is the narrative battlefield. And here there's something happening. I think it's almost world historical in the sense that, and I said it a few episodes ago, and Arnaud Bertrand on X did a long article on this. I think it's kind of the final battle in terms of Western philosophy between idealism and materialism. You know, idealism today is represented by those people who actually think that you can narrate your way into victory. They think it so much that they've totally deindustrialized. They can't produce weapons anymore. They can't produce anything, steel or whatever anymore, but they can produce bullshit. They can control the social media sphere pretty much all over the world, except behind the Great Wall of China, cyber war, which is the best thing they ever did, by the way. And it's being tested, you know. And I think when you come to the test, I'm a materialist. I think the materialist side will win it because they've lost economic supremacy to China. They've lost military supremacy to Russia, China, Iran, even as Sina was reminding us, to Yemen. They have lost naval supremacy to Yemen, the poorest country, one of the poorest countries in the world. So the materiality is biting them on the backside. And then they just come with one last narrative offensive. But, you know, the idea of peace was described already by Tacitus as they make a desert and call it peace. But they have turned Gaza into rubble, but they haven't made it a desert. If you look at the plan, it's all about getting rid of the tunnels, getting rid of the arms factories, because they get it. You know, the arms are being produced by the indigenous population. There is no desert. And there is no peace because they have to ask. I mean, after 2 years of the whole Western world giving its everything to these guys, to the point that, you know, they have more explosive than they know what to do for. It's 8 Hiroshimas today. After 2 years of this, they haven't been able to defeat this indigenous resistance. They haven't made a desert. And they're still trying to call it peace. And they want us to buy into that story, into that narrative. But the fact of the matter is they haven't made peace. And I personally believe the resistance will not accept this so-called peace plan. And it will carry on. And we need to steel ourselves for it. We need to support materially in every way that we can. We need to organize in whatever ways we're able to. And remember this thing, that this is a narrative battle on the side of those crazy people that think they can totally create your reality by just bullshitting your way, and the rest of the world who know there are some material realities that trump everything. You know, talk is cheap at the end of the day, but it's the realities, the people standing up saying, we won't have this. We are not buying into your stories anymore. And we are not acceding to being subjugated to you. We are we've had it with this narrative that there are some people that are more human than others, and some people who deserve dignity and equal rights and worth, and some people who just deserve to be exterminated, shut up, and be told what to do and treated like children, transitional to what, until Palestinian people become fully adults? What is this bullshit about? And I think the veil is being ripped, and we need to remember this, because they will bullshit you into disbelieving the reality of your own eyes, which is that this empire is declining, it's crumbling, and its stories are not working anymore. No one's buying it. You can buy TikTok and turn it into a 24/7 Zionist spewing propaganda machine. It won't change any minds at all. It will turn more people against it. And that was my attempt at ranting.
Pretty good, Benji. Pretty
okay.
good.
I'm getting there. I'm in training.
Training. You've got a great master in Cena, so you're
not worthy of the master, of course.
Very good. A number of things that you brought up there. But I'm wondering if anybody else would like to respond or react before we get to another update. Jared, actually, I've been wondering. Oh yeah, let's see. Renee. Go ahead, Renee.
No, it's okay. Do you want to ask Jared?
No, please go for it.
I just wanted to say, pointing out again to the news, how quickly the headlines became Hamas to consider, Hamas likely to turn in. Meanwhile, the inside person is like, Hamas doesn't think they're going to accept this peace plan. So we have to always remember that, the goal for all of these things is to keep everyone else propagandized and to keep everyone else on this nonsensical line, that these people who have been fighting for 2 years, proving without a doubt that these ghouls cannot remove these people from their land, of such that now it's to the point where they're, we're going to put forward this peace plan, right? This is what it's come down to. They're now begging for Hamas to give in, right? To say okay, we're going to turn it over now. And I think it is important for everyone to now take the stand of Hamas, don't do it. Palestine, don't do it. Do not go along with these ghouls, because in the end, you can't rely on them to do anything that they say they're going to do. Whatever they tell you they're going to do with this peace plan, they're going to do the exact opposite. So no matter what happens, no matter what Hamas says, Israel and the US and the Western, all these people, they're going to continue to do the same thing that they've always been doing, right? So the Palestinian people and Hamas, in my opinion, just listen, y'all held the line, and it's easy for me to say in my house in New Jersey, y'all held the line. But I don't know how, sacrificing themselves to the US and Western plan at this point is going to be beneficial at all, right? And so I, for one, agree with Benji. I hope they say hell no, hell to the effing no, however you need to put it, so that they understand that you cannot demand that a resistance force simply pack it up and go home, right? I don't even understand how they came up with this, and I will continue to pray for the people, because for real, I want the US to crumble, and Israel to crumble right behind it, and Canada to crumble right behind it, with the whole effing making people wear orange shirts. I don't even understand how this is even a conversation right now.
It's upside down. It's upside down, right? We should be in a, according to how they educated us, our country should be sending weapons into the tunnels to arm them against their invaders. You know what I mean? But I actually think the resistance has already given their answer on the ground. I think just before I got on air, they hit a group of 10 soldiers. I think yesterday they hit a group of 30, 30 in one one apparently in front of civilians, and the civilians started cheering or whatever, and I'm like, okay. So yeah, I tend to look at what's going on the ground and then and take it from there. And
there was a couple of headlines that were reporting, at least, that the Palestinians were considering the plan. I don't know what that, suggesting that they were considering accepting the plan. And to the point as we just heard, I hope that's not the case. I only wanted to just quickly add that as Renee was talking, I just got the alert that might add another bit to this narrative piece. That was the Times of London is saying that Donald Trump's peace plan prompts UEFA to pause vote on Israel suspension. So this might be an effort, if among many other things, in terms of narrative adjustment, to get Israel back into the World Cup, because they look like they were about to be voted out. And next year's World Cup, for those of us, I admit myself included, who still pay attention to world football, that would have been big. I think it would have been beautiful to see them get voted out and not be able to participate. And I hope that this nonsensical quote unquote plan doesn't get people to adjust their vote, but it seems like it's already moving in that direction.
But
So
I think that's probably the crucial factor in terms of timing, was the vote in the
yeah, it's all about
clearly
the football.
that.
It's all
Obviously,
about the football money. But they just voted in an Israeli. They just put an Israeli as the bloody president of FIFA anyway. So maybe they're doing like what they did with the ICJ, where they go, or Lebanon, where they go, okay, let's just find a way to pause it, and then we'll insert our person and then delay it. And like for football, Jesus, it's like, but it's the same MO every time. That's a thing to remember, is they operate rigidly and they just keep doing the same shit. Like when you're talking about this plan, it's like old times, right? It's how Palestine came to be, is how the entity came to be. They want to go back to the good old days, man, when they could just have slaves and do it and just do whatever they want and just be outwardly racist. And when you look at it, that's what Trump is psychologically has allowed. He's opened those gates to allow people to sort of access that, but it is the same old stuff. Whereas you look at resistance and it's adapt. When you track them both over time, the resistance like adapts and outsmarts them, adapts and outsmarts them. And every time they outsmart them, the empire just has to resort to breaking more, like, I don't know, there's got to be a crime worse than genocide, I guess, but whatever it is, I guess we'll find out, right? Because that's where they get pushed to, because they can't outsmart them. So sorry, that was a bit of a rant.
No, it's good. I mean, one of the things that, to what you brought up, Jared, I mean, I think though, like something like FIFA, it just represents the absolute isolation, like among global popular, among the global populace, among the people around the world, right? Nobody wants Israeli anything to be involved in anything. I'm a Portland Trailblazers fan. If I could say that we would have a losing record for the next 20 years, but we would trade Denny Avdia off the team, I would make that sacrifice in a heartbeat, right? Like, get that guy off of our team. It's painful. It's painful to be, a sports fan and to watch and to have to deal with that kind of stuff. And I think though, that's a thing about what was surprising to me to some extent with this proposal is the number of people, the number of states. I know these states are all just quislings, like to what Sina was talking about, of empire, but how many people have lined up, to support this proposal on its face, right? Rather than saying, no, like actually Gustavo Petro has a point. Like that's what we actually need to be doing, and how do we get to the world, right, where that is seen as like the bare minimum, right, that people need to be supporting the kind of proposals that the Colombia has put forward, even the more modest stuff when they were working with other countries. I know we talked about this in a previous live with Adnan. I can't even remember what it was called right now, but there was a group of countries that were working on different, economic proposals and things like that to sort of try to isolate, Israel amid the genocide and things like that. I mean, these are simple things. We're not talking about a high bar of solidarity here, compared with the history of, anti-colonial solidarity and things like that. But it's painful to watch these nation states form these alliances to support a plan like this, when the flip side is that football fans all around the world are so sick of the genocide that they don't even want to see the Israeli team playing in their sport. That's how unpopular these things are. So yeah. Should we do an
Absolutely.
update?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You can say
I
what
was
you
just
want
going
to
to
say.
add, I mean, to that point also, I mean, that's why they have to keep putting all these bans on flags and shirts and stuff at the stadiums, because if they don't do that, as soon as people gather anywhere publicly, anywhere in the world, the Palestinian flags go up, the condemnations of Zionism go up, and they start to lose the obvious narrative struggle. So yeah, but yeah, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I'll just give a quick update. We're up to about 11,000 pounds, 10,938 by my calculation, which, again, doing the quick conversion to dollars, US dollars, we're up to 14,766. So we've got like 7 minutes left. We might be able to break $15,000. We're less than 300, about $250 away from that. So yeah, people, if you have even a little more to give, maybe if a bunch of us do that, we could break that threshold. And so yeah, thank you.
If I can say one last thing, I think we have to remember there is this video of Sinwar where he says, he lays out the strategy. He says it will force the world, the entity and the world to choose. And I think we're at one of those moments, because I think the resistance will refuse it. They will just use it as legitimation for a more direct assault on Gaza City, where they will get more of their people smoked. And please follow John Elmer. If you get depressed, this is the best antidepressant around. And then what it goes is it shows that it's impossible to go for harm reduction. You had Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish prime minister, actually supporting the plan. And in a couple of days, he's going to look like a fucking idiot. And it actually, I think, gives even more legitimation for resistance at the cost of, but what are they going to increase? I mean, what can they do more than they're already doing? So this is all narrative. Remember, if Hamas says no deal, which they will, I believe, then it will just continue as it has been going anyway. So let's not get carried away in this and seeing what is happening. And what is happening is the people who go for the resistance are always growing and the others are always shrinking, including the accommodationists like Mr. Pedro Sanchez, Spanish PM.
Well, okay, go ahead, Sina. But it has to be a shorter rant. And you have to unmute yourself because you're a producer and you somehow have low volume or mute yourself.
Sir, I knew it was muted. Am I louder now? I can be louder. Is that better? People were saying I was quiet. So I think we have to. We're at a really this new moment we're in where we're headed towards multiple confrontations. There is a kind of. I worry that we're heading to a crescendo. To think that what we've been watching isn't the crescendo is frightening. But it seems that the imperialists need this W. Like they've collected so many L's. They have so many historic and material L's that are just that they're unable to recover from economically, politically, whatever. And this W is all they have, that they're putting all their eggs into this incredibly insane, violent project called Zionism. And Zionism exists because the world allows it to exist. The funds legitimates it and participates it. You don't have to participate in the World Cup if the Zionists do. You can just withdraw. Unfortunately, that's not fun because you want to participate in fun things. But I feel like in the West, we have this tool of starving and besieging them with our consumerism. And so that would be one way that I would suggest that we could do this. Like, we do not have to give our money to these people. And sometimes we do. Okay, fine. Like we do in some registers, but we don't have to give as much as we do to them. And instead, we can find creative ways to avoid them and hurt them. And this entity needs the whole world to work for it. It needs peace. It needs safety. It can't have its trade. It is completely dependent upon the planet in so many different ways for its existence. And so now that they're feeling now that they who have enjoyed besieging their enemies, sieging their enemies, now they've become the besieged, and bleeding them and exhausting them is the game. And that's terrible for the people of Gaza because they're taking out their rage on the people, on the civilians, because it's part of their wider goal of ethnic cleansing. So they said, okay, why not? Like two birds with one stone. In terms of getting our hostages back, which doesn't exist, obviously, like that's just the pretext. But more importantly, they get to achieve what they wanted to achieve. So this is not, this inflection point we're in is incredibly violent, and we have to steel ourselves from more violence, and we have to be willing to keep talking about it, keep showing it, keep forcing it into people's faces. This is our job. Our job is to bear witness, and the people who are watching this with us are obviously part of that because they confront it, but we have to bring it into the people's lives around us who are choosing not to pay attention, who are kind of wiping it away on they're just too busy, like this is the time to radicalize people, and it's happening. It's totally happening. So that's my recommendation. I do have one tiny request. Is I've been helping out a kid named Mohammed in Gaza. I know this is not a personal fundraiser. I know. He has a friend. I'm gonna put him in. He's his very good friend, and we're both very worried about him. I've become his friend too. His name is Mahmoud. I want to put the ad in. I'm gonna put the link. I know I know this is a group episode. I'm sorry, but I can't help it. This poor kid is trying to get out of North Gaza, and this is all we have. So I'm just going to use this opportunity to say that. And I thank you all for sticking around. Thank you, Jay and Adnan, for organizing this. Adnan has been leading this, and Jay has been doing the logistics. So thank you guys both.
I just want to say thank you, and I hope we get to that 15,000. I did get a call, so I do have to make sure that I get off on time. But I think this was what I needed. I needed to know that I'm not like crazy and I'm not alone. And so I appreciate everybody and their voice. Please, folks, if you have not, done so, make the donation and do not be complicit. They want us to be afraid. They want us to be silent. They want us to be siloed. And the way to stop that is to remember that you are not alone in knowing in your core that genocide should never be a thing. So peace, everybody. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Renee. Just to let you know, we did hit the 15,000. So I just wanted you to know that.
There we go. You need the sound thing, like Jared's got to do the. Take care.
Seen as a soundboard,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just to give an update here, we are at time, so I'm sure we'll be winding down now and saying goodbyes. There you go. We. In dollars, the total I have, and it may be even going up as I'm talking, but is $15,462. Let's round it up to $63. And so, yeah, amazing, wonderful. All the folks that supported, during this live stream. Thank you to all of the guests who joined us. What an all-star cast. We should shout out all the platforms again. So we had Nick Estes from the Red Nation. Make sure you check that out. Also check out his Substack. He has a podcast called Red Scare, and he and Sina have been doing Pod Capital, which is like a really fun, probably the most fun that anyone has ever had in reading Marx's Capital. Can be found in listening to that show. So check those things out. Saturdays with Renee Johnston, who just left us, is hosted by Renee, and Jared Ball, also from I Mix What I Like, co-hosts that. I Mix What I Like you can find on both I Mix What I Like, the YouTube channel, and then also does work over on Black Liberation Media. I should say, yeah, Saturdays with Renee is also on Black Liberation Media. So make sure you subscribe to all of these channels, folks. Support these channels through Patreon or whatever it means. Sasha and Benji from Resistance is Fertile. Check out their platforms. Great stuff. And then, of course, it's co-hosted by us with Millennials Are Killing Capitalism and the Adnan Hussein Show. Yeah, so between this network of people, you can find, great content like every day of the week, I think, between all the stuff that folks are putting out. Even if there was one day where by some stroke of genius, there's nothing out from any of us, there's days where some of us are putting out multiple things. So there's a lot of resistance media that we're all a part of, and it's really been great to do this with you all. It's a great group of folks, and so I encourage people to add all these folks to your own media diet to help with dealing with and forgot to mention Lar Shihai, of course, too, who I think is going to be starting a podcast soon. Sina, is that for sure happening? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and it's called Psychic Militancy, I think is what she's going to call it. Yeah. And so that will be great too. So yeah. Did I miss anybody? I'm sorry. I don't think so.
And on days where there's nothing, they can always go back to your own back catalog, where there's, and also Black Liberation Media and Jared, where there's treasure trove of stuff to watch.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I've been appreciating lately all of the archival stuff you've been digging up, Jared, from different conversations you had related to Asada over the years and stuff like that. That's it's a lot of really good stuff from there.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree. The collection here, the collective here puts out a lot of great content. So thanks everybody. And salute, congratulations for making that little goal, that impromptu goal too. That was pretty dope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on.
Adnan, you want to take us out of here?
Sure. I just want to again thank all of my colleagues and comrades. What a wonderful space. This was so enlivening and healing and encouraging to be with all of you participating on this collective live stream on all these platforms. So I encourage all the listeners, go check out Red Nation, Saturdays with Renee, Resistance is Fertile, I Mix What I Like, East is a podcast, and of course, Millennials Are Killing Capitalism, as well as support my little show by giving a like, subscribe. We're trying to do what we can in the media sphere to counter the disinformation, to try and give a boost to people. Maybe even if it's just for the vanguard. Sometimes I think, well, we're not reaching enough people. It's the same people, but the same people need to be encouraged. They need new sources of information. They need to be reinforced to keep up their commitment, because this is a long-term battle, a long-term struggle. And even if you are an activist and you know a lot of what we're talking about, doesn't it help you feel less alone to be together in this space? I certainly really have benefited from that. And I'm just so grateful to all the colleagues and comrades who have come onto the stream today to try and educate, and also to do something very specific, which is help support the Samir project. We talked about it at the top. There are many individual appeals. Go to, support all of those that you can. Lifeline for Gaza helps you find the ones that are neglected and haven't been supported. Support those ones, but also support collective mutual aid, because the only solution to this is going to be the social solidarity of the Palestinian people in resistance, and with and for the Palestinian people. So please do. The stream is essentially ending. We met our, goal that we came upon, but you can still give right now. And for people who are watching this afterwards, be a part of this, even if it didn't happen during 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time, anywhere you are in the world at any time going forward, you can do something to make a difference. So please do support it. And so just thank you, all of you who came into this space, who've been in
Thank
the
you.
chat. It's been great. We've tried to highlight a lot of your comments and engage with you. That's what it's about, building this community. So again, thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Peace with justice and solidarity.
Thank you all. Free
Thank you.
Palestine.
Free
Thank you.
Palestine,
Free
definitely.
Palestine.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.